Let's go to Connor in Philadelphia. Connor, what's up, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for taking my call, Dr. John.
Hey, brother, thanks for calling in. How can I help?
So I have a hard subject in my family, but my wife and my mother-in-law, they have a really shaky relationship. They actually haven't talked in about 4 years. After our first daughter was born, we have 2 children, and her mother's been addicted to prescription pain medications and abused fentanyl and morphine for over 15 years. Yeah. And I just see my wife struggling every day with her relationship and not talking to her mother, but we don't know what to do.
Okay. So mom's been an addict for 15 years. Is there any movement there, any desire to not do that anymore, or is it just is what it is?
So, about 4 years ago, what prompted her to stop talking to her is, her and I said, we can't just ignore the problem, right? And let's sit down and talk to her. And we sat down, we talked to her. Mother completely exploded.
Yep.
Adamantly denies, I'm not addicted. I'm prescribed this medication, but she takes more than she's prescribed. She uses multiple pain patches at the time. She's definitely abusing it. And she's lost everything. Physically, she's deteriorating financially, emotionally. She'll pass out in the middle of conversations that we're having. She'll pass out while our children are there. It's a mess. And, she exploded at us, kicked us out. And, pretty much that was the end of the last time we spoke to her. And that was in 2016.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you some hard truth, brother. You probably know what I'm going to say, but I know it helps to hear it from an outside source. You cannot have a functioning relationship with an addict.
Yep.
You can't. She needs connection. She needs love. She needs people to keep showing up and showing up and showing up. That may not be you guys right now with small kids. And that's especially painful for a guy like you who desperately loves his wife and whose wife desperately wants her mama to be involved in the raising of the 2 small kids, having a grandmother that's around, right? This whole Norman Rockwell fantasy picture is gone because somebody's an addict. And I'm not in the business of blaming addicts. I can't imagine the story that your grandma's experienced and the numbing and the ability to distance herself from that pain that fentanyl and some of that nonsense can provide. But the reality is your job is taking care of your kids and loving your wife the best that you can. And you can't do that in relationship with a functioning addict.
Yeah, what hurts the most, my wife, thank God, she works in the medical field and she knows that stuff. I think that the challenge for us is, I see her hurting and I want to help my wife. I know there's nothing I can do for her, but is there anything I could do for my wife to try to help her cope with it?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is you can know this intellectually as a helping professional, right? I know a lot of things, but it doesn't mean it doesn't really hurt when my wife says something, right? Or when I call home and my parents are working on something, right? It still hurts. And that idea of knowing intellectually in your frontal lobe versus feeling, and your amygdala is not sending off signals that you're disconnected. So a couple of things. One is I'm going to recommend that this is just husband to husband, dad to dad, that you yourself set an example, not through advice, not through, hey, you know what you should be doing, but that you go see a counselor. And when your wife asks you what you're doing, why you're doing it, tell her, I love you and I love our kids, and I'm really haunted by this situation that they're going to grow up without a grandma, and I want to know how to love you better, and I want to know how to love these kids better. And that's going to be a signal to her that you are deeply tethered in and that you're invested. And at the end of the day, all you can control is you, right? That's it. And so you're going to get some tools and some relationship ideas and some new strategies on how to love better. But you're also going to signal to your wife that we've got to put the fantasy to bed. It's over. The second thing is I want you to be somebody who offers strong boundaries, meaning you've got to sit down with your wife and say, all right, this is 15-year addiction. This is 4 years. We're not talking. At the end of the day, there's not a lot we can do here. Maybe there's brothers and sisters who can help with intervention. Maybe there's your father-in-law is willing to help and go all in with the army. That's one option. But it sounds like you need to sit down with your wife and y'all need to paint a new picture of what Thanksgiving is going to look like without grandma forever. You're going to need to paint a picture of kids growing up not knowing who their grandma was, or only seeing them every once in a while because grandma checked out, right, for whatever reason. Knowing that when your wife is frustrated or she breaks down in tears, that she doesn't need advice from you, she just needs a hug from you to say, I love you and this sucks. It's not supposed to be that way. Moms are supposed to be connected with their daughters. Moms are supposed to be invested in their grandkids' life, and y'all aren't going to get that. And it's less about trying to fix it. Your wife knows what's up. She's smart. She's brilliant. She married a wise guy like you. Man, it just sucks. It's just a matter of being with her. When I tell you that you got to put the fantasy down, my guess is after 4 years, y'all have had this conversation. How is it gone?
So it's exactly what you said. You know, there are times where, you know, we've said it. You know, we've said this is not a safe place for our children to be. The way that she behaves and acts now, being addicted is not. It's unsafe for our children, and I can't bring a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old around her.
That's
I can't.
Right.
And
good for you. Hey,
father,
listen. That's a big deal that you just said that. Good for you. There's too many people who are trying to live out a fantasy, live out I wish it was, and they are trying to cram a triangle through a square hole, man. They're trying to take a round peg and just mash it through a triangle hole, brother. And you've done some hard things by saying, my kids aren't safe, I'm not doing it. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, it's hard. And what makes it even more challenging, I think, is my wife has memories pre-addiction and how great her mother was.
Yeah.
And my mother passed away from cancer before I even met my wife. So, you know, our children don't have a grandmother. My mother-in-law is divorced from my father-in-law from this, so it's almost like a death of a family member.
Hey, listen.
While they're still living.
It's exactly like a death of a family member, except it's worse because you're right. They're still alive. You can't properly grieve it and move on. And so what you and your wife have got to do, brother, you have got to grieve it. Maybe even have a small ceremony. And I don't mean that tongue in cheek. I mean a true ceremony that you and your wife go somewhere. You celebrate a memory she had of mom before addiction, when mom was whole and mom was safe and mom was warm. And you mourn the passing of that. You grieve it. And you cry like you haven't cried. I'd recommend that your wife write a couple of letters that she's never going to give her mom. But write her mom a letter of anger. Here's what you're missing. Here's the beautiful babies you're missing. Here's the narratives you're missing. And I wanted to write a second letter, which is, here's who I'm going to be. I'm going to be an incredible mom. I'm never going to be an addict. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to go to counseling. I'm going to double down on my husband. I'm going to be an extraordinary woman. And let those things rest. And then y'all grieve the loss of your mother-in-law. It sucks, brother. It sucks. Here's the thing. There is no way to avoid the pain of this because it's a living, breathing hurt. It just is. Again, brother, I want to commend you for being a great husband, for being an invested husband, for trying to love your wife the best you can. Grieve this thing, let go of the fantasy, and then start building a new world. That may mean finding some older ladies at church who become surrogate grandmothers. I had 2 grandmothers living, and my son, when he was 5 and 6, made best friends. It was like reverse Dennis the Menace. He made best friends with an elderly woman who lived next door to us. She'd give him fig Newtons, and he would cut her little weeds with some scissors that she gave him, and they would chit-chat for hours. It was just really beautiful together. And we haven't lived in that town for several years, and we still write letters. We still get notes. And it's just a matter of finding somebody else to get invested in your kid's life. There's women out there who would love to do that. There's surrogate granddads who would love to be invested. But it's a matter of finding that. But don't go find those things until you've grieved the loss. And I'll also put this out there for folks who have addiction in their family. It's going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but don't give up. Don't give up on people. Keep praying for folks. You can send cards. You can send letters that say, I love you. If you've got brothers and sisters who want to reach out and do an intervention, you can do that. But protect your hearts, because the reality is, especially with fentanyl and golly, man, prescription drugs addictions, those things are demons that just drown family members. Drown family members. And to doctors who keep writing that nonsense, man, stop. Stop. Quit doing that, man. You're destroying families. Help people get well. Don't just dope them up to the point that they become non-functional, unsafe grandparents. Stop. Man.